Finnlands bekanntester KI-Unternehmer Peter Sarlin will Europas Netzwerke für künstliche Intelligenz stärken. Dafür finanziert er ein Dutzend Professuren, baut neue Technologie-Labore auf und hat diese Woche erstmals einen KI-Gipfel gestartet mit führenden Köpfen aus Wissenschaft, Unternehmen und Politik. Warum das wichtig ist? Sarlin hat im vergangenen Jahr seine KI-Firma SiloAI an einen US-Konzern verkauft. Jetzt nutzt er sein Vermögen in einer Weise, wie wir es selten bei erfolgreichen Unternehmern sehen, und er verfolgt einen Ansatz, der zum Vorbild werden könnte. Denn bahnbrechende Technologien kommen oft aus den USA, selten aus Europa. Ein Grund dafür laut Experten: uns fehlen starke Netzwerke aus Forschung, Industrie und Kapitalgebern. Unter den Top 10 Innovationsclustern weltweit kommt nur eins aus Europa, keins aus der EU. Sarlin will das ändern. Wie er das macht, warum auch die Unterstützung eines Fußballclubs dabei eine gewisse Rolle spielt und warum sein neuestes Projekt zunächst auf den Verteidigungssektor abzielt, darüber spreche ich mit ihm in diesem Podcast. Und damit hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Handelsblatt Disrupt. Mein Name ist Larissa Holzki. Ich melde mich heute aus Helsinki von der großen Startup-Messe Slush und ich freue mich, dass Sie zuhören. Dieses ist meine erste Folge als neuer Host in dieser Show und Sie merken schon, ab sofort sind hier ein paar Dinge anders. Das Wichtigste zuerst. Ich möchte Sie hier auch zu den aktuellen KI- und Technologieentwicklungen auf dem Laufenden halten. Deshalb starten wir an dieser Stelle ab sofort mit den wichtigsten Tech-News der Woche. Und dazu spreche ich jetzt mit unserem Technologie-Teamleiter Stefan Scheuer, der ab heute an meiner Stelle das wöchentliche KI-Briefing schreibt. Hallo Stefan.
Hallo Larissa.
Stefan, ich war am Mittwochabend auf einer Party hier in Helsinki mit dem Who's Who der Tech-Szene und bei der ersten Runde Bier, da gab es ein beherrschendes Thema: Wie gut werden die Zahlen sein, die der Chipkonzern Nvidia abends präsentiert? Gleich zweimal habe ich mitbekommen, dass Unternehmer noch ihr Handy gezückt haben und nachinvestiert haben. Ist denn diese schnelle Wette auf den Chipkonzern aufgegangen?
Die entscheidende Frage ist, zu welchem Zeitpunkt ge- und verkauft wurde. Die Zahlen von Nvidia waren deutlich besser als erwartet. Jensen Huang ist es gelungen, die großen Sorgen vor einer KI-Blase erstmal zu entkräften. Als Reaktion darauf ging die Nvidia-Aktie auch erstmal wieder deutlich nach oben. Im Laufe des Handelstages in New York am Donnerstag rutschte sie dann jedoch wieder ab. Wer also zum Schluss des Handelstages verkauft hat, hat am Ende dann doch wieder ein Minus gemacht. Das ist allerdings nur eine Momentaufnahme. Grundsätzlich gilt, es ist beeindruckend, wie es Nvidia gelingt, immer wieder und wieder die Erwartungen der Analysten zu übertreffen.
Die europäische Startup-Szene trifft sich ja diese Woche in Finnland. Viele deutsche Gründer sind allerdings direkt aus Berlin gekommen. Die haben vorher noch den Bundeskanzler Friedrich Merz getroffen und auch den französischen Präsidenten Emmanuel Macron. Was war denn da los und was müssen wir darüber wissen?
In Berlin ist das Who is Who der politischen Landschaft, aber auch der Technologielandschaft zusammengekommen. Digital-Gipfel war das große Schlagwort und war der Name der Veranstaltung, die die Bundesregierung schon einige Jahre ausrichtet. Zusammen eben nicht nur mit Regierungsvertretern aus Deutschland, sondern auch aus Frankreich. Jede Menge Konzerne waren vor Ort, wie SAP, Deutsche Telekom, aber auch aus Frankreich der Netzbetreiber Bleu, Cloud-Betreiber wie Blue, OVH, also das Who is Who der Technologielandschaft, und alle mit der Idee, einen eigenen europäischen Weg zu finden, was technologischen Fortschritt angeht. Man möchte sich weniger abhängig machen von Anbietern aus China und insbesondere auch von großen Cloud-Anbietern in den USA. Dazu wurden jede Menge Partnerschaften geschlossen. Allen ist aber auch klar, die Übermacht der großen amerikanischen Anbieter ist so groß, dass man sich nur sehr schwer kurzfristig daraus lösen können wird.
Ja, spannend. Danke, Stefan. Die dritte News, die steuere ich hier selbst aus Finnland bei und sie betrifft unseren Gast im heutigen Podcast. Das ausführliche Interview mit Peter Sarlin, das haben wir schon am Sonntag in seiner Heimatstadt Turku aufgenommen, wo er seinen ersten eigenen KI-Gipfel veranstaltet hat. Heute gab es aber große News um sein KI-Verteidigungslabor und worum es da geht, das habe ich ihm direkt hier auf der Slush in Helsinki nochmal gefragt. Peter, we talked about your AI lab, Nest AI, on Sunday in Turku during the podcast recording. Today, just before the episode goes live, there was big news. You're raising 100 million euros and announcing an important partnership. Where is the money coming from?
So indeed, it's a strategic partnership between Nest AI and Nokia. And the 100 million is coming from Nokia and the Finnish sovereign fund TESI.
Mm-hmm. And so far you've shared very little about what exactly you're doing with Nest AI. Can you tell us more now? I already know you want to build a command and control system for unmanned systems, but what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so Nest AI is a next generation physical AI lab. So our core focus is on physical AI and how we build intelligence and autonomy into unmanned systems. And indeed, so we stand on top of a platform for unmanned systems and command and control systems. And basically deliver intelligence to that. Mm-hmm. Physical AI means intelligence to a wide range of different systems, including devices, vehicles, and yes, you could call it robotics as well.
Mm-hmm. And other companies are building similar systems, Palantir, for example. Why are you entering this field and what sets you apart?
So we are delivering a platform for unmanned systems and command and control systems. So indeed, there are similarities.
What can you do with this kind of systems?
So unmanned systems obviously can serve multiple different purposes, and in line with that, Nest AI is a multi-domain AI lab covering not only defense, but also logistics, inspection, surveillance, and security and critical infrastructure. And then eventually command and control is basically the way to add sort of full autonomy and intelligence and allow you to steer operations with such systems. And our angle to the market is that we are providing an open, interoperable and modular platform for that purpose, and then eventually intelligence on top.
And why do you think Europe needs such a company and a system from Europe?
I think it's decisive for Europe to tap into platforms that they eventually own and control. And then obviously what I think sort of distinguishes Nest AI from others is the intelligence that we are providing to these platforms.
Perfect, thank you.
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
At PwC, we build for what's next, so you can get there now, so you can protect what you built, so you can create new value. PwC, so you can. PwC refers to the PwC network and or one or more of its member firms, each of which is a separate legal entity.
Bevor wir jetzt zum ausführlichen Gespräch mit Peter Sarlin kommen, noch ein schneller Hinweis für alle, die über ein Handelsblatt-Abo nachdenken. Das gibt es jetzt für 12 Monate mit 50% Rabatt, gedruckt oder digital. Mit fundierten Recherchen, starken Meinungen und exklusiven Hintergründen behalten Sie den Überblick über die wichtigsten Wirtschaftsthemen. Das Aktionsangebot gilt bis zum 8. Dezember. Mehr Infos dazu finden Sie unter handelsblatt.com/podcast50. Und damit zu Finnlands bekanntesten KI-Gründer Peter Sarlin. Peter, I usually start a podcast by saying thank you for joining us, but this time it is the other way around. So because you invited me to the first AI summit here in Turku. So first of all, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
For people who have never heard of Turku, what should they know about this city and the region you call home?
Yeah, I usually say it's the former capital of Finland. So it's a historical city, used to be the capital during the Swedish era. And I would call it a combination of nature, culture, and academia.
And I visited you here once before when I was in Helsinki last summer, and you told me that no one should visit Finland without seeing the archipelago. You were right about this, and this time I'm not the only one who come here. The lineup you put together is pretty impressive. There are AI research from all over Europe and beyond. There's Finland's Prime Minister Petteri Orpo, Nobel Prize winner Bengt Holmström, and from Sweden, one of Europe's best-known AI founders right now, lovable CEO Anton Ozika. So why do you bring all these people together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's sort of a deeper answer to this, but I guess in practice, what happened was that last autumn, so about 1 year ago, when we launched my foundation PS, and eventually committed to do a number of donation professorships. I wasn't too serious about the comment of setting up a world-class event in Finland and in Turku, but eventually during the past year felt committed to actually make that happen. And along the way found good partners with which to do that. So the Alice Institute, AI Finland, and then also sponsors like the City of Turku and the LSP Foundation. And then now it's been the past 6 months what we've been doing. So basically ensuring we're combining world-class researchers with the Alice Institute at the front, and then both startups and larger companies getting together to basically not only talk about AI science, but how that actually makes a difference in the real world.
Mm-hmm. There's this saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and for building a successful conference and also a successful tech company, you need a whole network. Many big innovations happen where researchers work inside strong clusters connected to universities, to big companies and venture capital. But Europe has a problem here. According to the World Intellectual Property Organization, only one of the top 10 clusters worldwide is in Europe. You want to change that, and you're putting a lot of money and effort into several initiatives we'll talk about today. Why is this so important to you?
Well, it's important because I think it really makes a difference. And when I say that, I mean that it really makes a difference that we build strong ecosystems. And why I think it's important to build strong ecosystems around AI and technology is just because I eventually believe that, for Europe to succeed, for us to be competitive, to basically see Europe grow, we need to succeed in building technology companies and AI companies. And AI obviously is becoming sort of just an embedded part of technology companies, which means that for that to happen, we need to have the ingredients in place in Europe. And you can look at this from so many different perspectives. You can look at it from the perspective of we don't have the plus 1 billion companies in Europe, while the US has created them during the past 5 decades. We've barely created plus 100 billion companies, only one, Spotify. And what should we do for that to happen? And there's a lot of things that should be done. And at the same time, it's important to understand that it took many decades to build the tech companies of the plus 1 billion tech companies of today. It also takes a long time to build strong ecosystems like Silicon Valley. But it is an ecosystem, and Silicon Valley was originally built around Stanford, and first you had a few companies that became large companies, and then you had more startups and eventually scale-ups around that, and all of that around an academic cluster. Mm-hmm. And I think that is sort of those are the ingredients with which you can actually have an impact also in the short term, and everyone can actually contribute. And I've oftentimes referred to Paris. It's not the only, mm-hmm. but it is an extremely good example of a strong ecosystem growing in Europe and proving how an academic cluster can eventually attract world-class R&D centers. In this case, North American companies setting up their R&D center like Meta, like Google DeepMind, like OpenAI, and eventually then the local talent that might for a while stay with these R&D centers, then leave to set up their own company, mm-hmm. or leave to join local tech companies like with Mistral and H Company and Kyotai.
People often say Europe is still strong in basic research and patents, but only 1/3 of the patents filed in Europe are commercialized. You are one of the founders who came out of a university. Can you explain from your own story with SiloAI why an ecosystem is so important? Who did you need to build this successful company?
Yeah, I think every journey is a little bit different, and I have a sort of it's very difficult to say that the path that took us eventually to become Europe's largest private AI lab would have directly benefited from a strong ecosystem. I think the reality was that we came from Finland, where there was not many AI companies, and I think we had to take a little bit of a different path compared to many. We didn't raise any of the sort of large funding rounds in the beginning. We bootstrapped, we grew with customers. At the time, I think that was actually the right choice. And you can see that if you look at how many AI companies were founded before 2017 when we founded Silo, or even before 2022. There aren't many in the world, OpenAI and then a few other large ones, but not many. So, our path to market allowed us to grow through the different AI cycles along the years. But eventually, I think ecosystems play a key role. But as you referred to, it's not only about academic talent. It's not only about patents. Ultimately, for a company to grow and scale, you need obviously many other things. An ecosystem can help you grow and get started.
Yeah. 1 year ago, you sold SiloAI to US chipmaker AMD for $665 million, one of the biggest AI deals in Europe. Do you see Silo today as a kind of sacrifice you had to make so you can now push even more projects?
The answer is no. But because I really believe that for Silo, it was, I've said that it's the next chapter of the same journey. For us, it was a natural way to get more resources, to do more. And the impact that we've had on the world has always been indirect through the strategic R&D partnerships that we've done. And now we can do more and much, much larger. And as you alluded to, obviously, then the question is, what is the is it the sacrifice? No. But is it a larger impact on the ecosystem? Yes. So I think you can do both. You can eventually then give much, much more back to the community by becoming a strong partner in this ecosystem. And I think this is an example of exactly what happened, for instance, in Paris. Now, Silo is still headquartered in Finland and has offices across Europe and is just a stronger member of the ecosystem. Obviously, we are now part of AMD, and that allows us to have a global footprint, and as a global AI lab, then eventually help companies across the world like we did already before.
And we will talk in a moment about everything Foundation PS has already started. But before that, tell us a bit about yourself. There's some astonishing facts from your life besides the exit of SiloAI. You played handball here in Turku in the professional team. You finished your bachelor's and master's degree in economics in a record 23 months and became a tenured professor at 28. You later advised the European Central Bank under Mario Draghi on AI. Is it really true that you were a lazy student before, and what pushed you to change?
Yeah, that's probably true. I've always focused on the things that matter for me at the time, and
what mattered for you at the time?
and when I was younger, it was more sports than studies, and I think eventually it was really about sort of finding what I really not only enjoy but believe can have an impact in this world. And then obviously every person goes through different both more and less challenging parts of your life, and eventually once you find that sort of thing that you really enjoy doing, if you are sort of a entrepreneurially minded and passionate person, then you go all in. And that's basically what happened for me. I mean, when I started my studies at the university, I started off with economics. And only during the first year of my PhD in Stockholm, PhD in economics, I concluded that I don't believe in the mathematical toolbox that we used at the time to basically model financial stability and financial crisis. And that eventually, I obviously had been playing around with neural networks for some years already at that point, but that took me to eventually jump ship and move to do a PhD in machine learning, and then eventually work closely with the central banks across the world, including the ECB, to build models for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about sports. Besides all your AI and innovation projects, you also support the local football club here, which is not in great great financial shape. You do this together with people like former Bayer Leverkusen goalkeeper Lukas Radetzky. Is this just kind of a hobby for you, or do you see a link between sports and economic success?
I think sports is an important part of, I would say people's life in general, but obviously, especially for children, including my own.
You have 3 of them?
Yes, I've myself played football as well as handball, so for me it was a way to give back to the local football club that's more than 100 years old, of course with Lucas and others. The football club was not in good shape. Now it's in much better shape, and they actually, after a very tough season, financially tough season, ended up moving to the championship league of Finland. So, and this is important to me, and it's important, like other activities where I believe sort of I can give back when I'm in a position where, I actually have the resources to do that.
And it also shows the kind of network you have here. So from Finland's prime minister to national football players, and the distances between cities are pretty big. Are there advantages in living in a country with only 5.6 million people?
That's a good question. I don't know whether I see sort of a causal relationship between the number of people living in Finland and benefits, but I think Finland is a beautiful country. It's important to me. I've lived almost all my life in Finland, and at the same time, obviously, sort of. I've spent a large share of my career working internationally. So, pulling together people to work for instance, AI, the AI success of Europe is a very natural task. And that's not only a Finnish activity.
And what I was trying to get at is this. I wonder if we can learn from this that Europe sometimes thinks too small. I mean, look at Baden-Württemberg in Germany. In Tübingen, you have the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems and the headquarters of the Alice Network. In Karlsruhe, you have KIT, one of Germany's top technical universities, plus a strong Fraunhofer AI center. In Heilbronn, Dieter Schwarz is aiming to build the largest AI campus in Europe. The cities are actually very close to one another, but there's more competition than support between these places. And I think that's on a small scale what is sometimes happening between Germany and France. So is European sovereignty fading because of local interests, and what can we learn from Finland?
So I think the difference between Finland and maybe some regions in Europe might be the fact that in Finland we've always understood that we can't only operate within Finland. We've always been small. We've always been the challenger, the underdog. And we're kind of, while understanding that, we've had the courage to actually aim higher, and then been willing to do the work. And I think this is a clear challenge for Europe today, and I would look at it from the viewpoint of Europe being fragmented, and not only fragmented in terms of single market, but fragmented in terms of efforts. So we really don't, we really don't have the resources to build, tens or hundreds of different strong AI ecosystems, but we should pull together and work together in building something much larger and stronger. And that means also to some extent sort of picking winners and then focusing on certain parts of Europe. And that's what I've said previously as well, in that, be it how say the Commission focuses on supporting activities to how we as basically countries and company ecosystems focus on building strong ecosystems that are, for instance, in one city rather than 10 cities.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what you're doing to build a stronger AI ecosystem. You already mentioned Foundation PS that offered a new AI professorship to all Finnish universities. So why did you choose to support many places at once instead of one single hub?
That's actually a very good question. And the reality is that I actually chose to support one hub, and that hub is Ellis Institute Finland. But Ellis Institute Finland is set up as a national institute rather than sort of an institute for one city or one university, which means that while my donations are allocated to all universities, they're also co-affiliated with the National Ellis Institute. And that as a mechanism was actually very carefully sort of crafted in the sense that, as a donor, I obviously don't have the opportunity or even right to get involved in how professors are chosen. But at the same time, I obviously wanted to make sure that the donation has an impact and is ambitious. And this is a way to do that because Ellis Institute is ensuring that it is recruiting high-profile professors and has the bar very high in terms of especially academic rigor. And then at the same time, this is a way to pull together all Finnish universities to drive one strong institute. And now we can see that that's actually really working. We had proof points before last fall when we set up this structure that the PhD students, the Ellis network, is allowing you to recruit are of extremely high quality. And the same has happened with the professorship. So you can see that now out of 13, the 9 first professors that have been recruited, they come with strong background from everything ranging from Harvard to Cambridge, Oxford, ETH, EPFL, the top Chinese universities, top Canadian universities, and so forth. So I think Ellis Institute Finland is now paving the way for the next European Ellis Institutes in actually succeeding to recruit top talent to Europe.
I find this approach interesting because many attempts to build ecosystems in Europe start with office space for startups and business classes for founders. You start much earlier with scientific excellence. Have we in Europe been trying to grow the wrong kind of startups, ones with too little deep technology?
Yeah, I mean, my approach to it was very deliberate in the sense that I wanted to put efforts into building the academic cluster, and then of course I think you need a lot of other activities. You also need someone to eventually rent office space and build a hub and build accelerators for companies and so forth. And that is also happening. But then I think really the most important part, and this is also, it's not only an opportunity, it's also a risk, is that while we build strong academic rigor and academic clusters, we eventually don't have the opportunities for the talent that we both attract and retain to eventually move into the local companies. And the risk obviously is that, Finland ends up educating a lot of talent or having PhD students and postdocs that then leave to other regions for meaningful work. All talented people want to work with other talented people and on challenging problems, moonshots. So this is the other activity that I've also wanted to contribute to, but also others are doing. So that's basically building the company ecosystem or industrial ecosystem around the academic cluster, ensuring that there is, large companies like AMD and SiloAI, but also others, as well as startups that are doing ambitious projects around the academic cluster.
And that's because the foundation is only one part of your work here. Can you give us a quick overview on the different initiatives before we go into the other initiatives?
Yeah, so I mean, my activities through Postscriptum, my family office, span across investing into early stage startups and what I call super angel investments. as well as then eventually building own AI technology. And the sort of fun part here is that Silo was actually originally a spin-out from Postscriptum. It was called Infolitica Ventures, a venture builder at the time that I ran on the side of my professorship with my research group. And Postscriptum obviously now has the resources after the acquisition of SiloAI to do more and larger initiatives, and that has implied that I wanted to basically give back and help and support talented entrepreneurs. Usually, I like to say that it's both about giving back, but also about learning from talented entrepreneurs, and that includes companies like Lovable, Legora, Tandem Health, and many others in the Nordics, but also across Europe. And then, as I think you also highlighted, a recent initiative is a physical AI and next generation AI focused company called Nest AI that Postscriptum has been funding during the past 6 months or so.
So now you need to explain, what does physical AI actually mean?
Well, it has many names, obviously. Many talk about embodied intelligence nowadays, but it's really about sort of AI becoming part of devices and vehicles and unmanned systems. Eventually, you could call it just robotics.
And from my point of view, Nest AI looks a bit like a defense AI lab. The Finnish military is one of your first partners. What are you working on together?
Yeah, the Finnish Defence Forces is one of our first public partners. We haven't talked about our partners too much so far, but yes, it's a multi-domain AI lab that covers indeed defense, but also logistics, inspection, surveillance, and so forth. So our focus is basically on building next generation AI technologies for embodied intelligence or physical AI. And for us, that means unmanned systems and eventually command and control or command centers for those unmanned systems. And obviously sort of one focus then is drones, and drones is obviously an important topic for defense.
Yeah, and maybe it is important to say at this point that Finland and Russia share more than 1,300 kilometers of border. In the 19th century, Finland was part of Russia, and this city here lost its status as capital during that time. How present is the Russian threat in Finland today, and how does it shape you and your company?
That's a good question, in the sense that I think it's always been present. So there's obviously a difference during the past few years, but compared to many countries in Europe, I think the threat has always been there, and it is, as you say, we have the longest border to Russia. So for me, I mean, it is important to the extent that I've cared about and talked about Europe's competitiveness and growth. And I think Europe's competitiveness and growth is indeed something that, I want to put efforts in driving, and that's about tech and AI sovereignty. But without security, competitiveness and growth doesn't really matter. So it's clear that sort of as part of that, it is, important for all of us to ensure that we have security in Europe.
And Finland has mandatory military service for male citizens. You yourself trained as an officer. The country is seen as a model when it comes to resilience. For example, there are special courses for managers, so everyone knows what to do in a crisis. Can you give us just a sense of what you learned there?
Yeah, I think it actually plays an important role in many ways, and maybe going back to your earlier questions, I do think it forms people in Finland. I think it formed myself as well. You get to see a full cross section of the society. I spent 1 year in the army, and I do think I grew as a person during that year. Obviously, sort of it builds resilience, and you get educated in that sort of domain. But I really think it's an important sort of element in us as Finns that we all spend half a year or a year in the army. Not all women, but some women as well. But indeed, I mean, I think the combination of the mandatory conscription service, as well as the sort of preparedness that has existed, since the Second World War in Finland, forms us and our, preparedness today.
Yeah, very interesting. I think we can learn a lot from that. So, Peter, your AI conference is not the only big event in Finland this week. Slash is also happening, maybe the most popular startup conference in Europe. What makes Slash special, and why did Helsinki manage to build such a strong event, even though it is already very cold and very dark at the end of November? And the word slash, which means schneematsch, often describes the weather pretty well.
Yeah. I think, as I think of it now, in the same way as we made a promise 12 months back, and then eventually now are putting together the first event in hopefully a series of AI summits. I guess that's a bit the same that happened with some of the key people behind Slash. I was not involved in setting up Slash, but that took a few stubborn people with a lot of grit and perseverance to grow a tiny event to eventually become one of Europe's largest events. And now you can see that you have a quite unique culture in the event. You have people. You have thousands of people that are contributing, working for free to put together an exciting event for startups in Europe, and I think the atmosphere that Slash provides is actually fairly unique compared to events across the world.
And I think that was the first time I heard you saying that you're not involved in something happening here. So we talked about your impressive career. You're only 39 at the moment. What are your personal goals for the next 10 years? And do you have someone you look up to when it comes to using your own wealth to create impact?
That's an interesting question in the sense that I've never really had personal goals, and I've never really had individual people that I've sort of followed and looked up to in the sense that I would basically do the same. So there's a lot of people I look up to, of course, and I obviously have ambitious plans for the future, but there's no North Star that I've made the plan that when I'm 45 or 50, then I want to have this checklist done. I feel lucky to have been able to spend my 39 years on meaningful things so far. Those have been quite different along the years, and that's kind of what's steering me. I do feel that I still want to try to contribute and do continue to do meaningful things. And now, obviously, given that Postscriptum has a little bit more resources, hopefully, we can continue to do larger things in the future.
And maybe you shouldn't waste your time on planning things, but actually doing them. So I'm very excited to see what happens next. Thank you for the insights and good luck, Peter.
Thank you.
Das war's für heute mit Handelsblatt Disrupt. Redaktion Larissa Holzki, Produktion Migo Fecke. Lob, Kritik und Anregungen können Sie mir per E-Mail oder auch auf LinkedIn schicken. Details dazu finden Sie in den Shownotes. Die nächste Folge von Disrupt kommt nächste Woche wieder. Bis dahin geht es für mich nach Paris zum deutsch-französischen Business-Tag und dem Adopt AI Summit. Ich wünsche auch Ihnen eine spannende Zeit. Ihre Larissa Holzki.
Am 11. Dezember in Düsseldorf startet die Handelsblatt Media Group mit Sync for Growth. Das neue Event für Marketing, Vertriebs- und Tech-Entscheider. Im Mittelpunkt stehen Fragen rund um Führung, künstliche Intelligenz, die richtigen Tools und echte Kundenzentrierung. Erlebe Inspiration, Praxisbeispiele und Austausch auf Augenhöhe. Melde dich jetzt an auf growth-event.com. Mit dem Vorteilscode Podcast erhältst du 20% Rabatt.